think for what it's worth, town resolution 123 is adoption of Robert's rules. It is part of town procedure. You know, we've been kind of flying by the seat of our pants and going loosey-goosey, but yeah, I think it should be part of the meeting.
Okay, well, I missed what was said.
That's pretty much what she was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not something that I would force people to say or force people not to say. I'll leave it, if the committee wants to take a vote, they could take a vote. I was unaware that it was part of any town procedure. I did discuss it with a couple of town officials, and to me, it's up to the committee.
Yeah, I don't
If
think
it comes
needs.
up, I don't know what to say, what people want to do.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's not, well, see, that's the thing. I'm not gonna tell people, please, I'm not gonna tell people to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance because it is not a law.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it.
Okay,
You want me to do it?
you can do it.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the country which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Except the one part. Okay. So as I sent out in my email, I dropped the ball this month because the holidays and the Mondays threw me off a little bit. But on our agenda, last month we had Jan Jackie come and speak to us about the New York Forward Grant and asking us to write a letter. I included it in the email. And, well, first we should adopt the minutes from last week. So has everybody read the minutes?
Mm-hmm.
They were sent out by email. So I'll make a motion, we adopt them.
Second. Aye. All in favor?
Aye. All in favor? Okay.
Passes.
So, did everybody read the letter from the New York Forward? Well, it's Pine Hill, it's PH2, which stands for Pine Hill and Phoenicia. It's the two main hamlets in the town, the two most productive. They have meetings. Leah Perlman is part of it. She's not here this month. So their vision is, right now they're putting in a grant, just a little background, they're putting in for a grant for some projects in Pine Hill. And it was not to exclude Phoenicia, but it's just that there are several projects in Pine Hill that are more shovel ready, and then in the future it would be like Phoenicia's turn. So their vision for Pine Hill is from 19th century Summers tourist haven to a 21st century four-season trail town and a great place to live. Using our small footprint in a big wilderness and recreation area, our hamlet's walkability and diverse and creative community, our rich history and vibrant nonprofits, we want to model what sustainable living looks like in a forever wild park.
That's it?
That's the vision. And
That's
then there's
vision
about
stuff.
5 pages of a wish list of things that they want to do.
Jan Jackie.
I will spare.
Okay.
So the letter that they would like us to sign, and I would sign it as the chairperson, is as follows. To whom it may concern, the Shandaken Comprehensive Plan Committee has been formed to, I'm sorry, am I not on? The Shandaken Comprehensive Plan Committee has been formed to update the town's existing comprehensive plan. We have reviewed the New York Forward Pine Hill Vision Statement, the list of needs and potential projects that have been developed through a community participatory process. Some of our committee members took part in that public process last year to identify town needs and name potential projects in the hamlets that have a downtown. The vision and the project list are are consonant with the parts of our original comprehensive plan that we intend to reinforce with newer strategies and updated techniques. Our current plan states that overall, we seek to build our region as one with bustling hamlets, interesting shops, successful restaurants, and attractive overnight accommodations, surrounded by open spaces and unspoiled natural beauty. One with a prosperous economy centered around tourism, historically our most enduring business. The Pine Hill Forward application includes all that is embodied in that vision, plus emphasis on activities, what we intend to include in our updated plan. Attention to climate resilience, highlighting historical resources, using modern technology, support for unique nonprofit assets, and provision of codes and resources that encourage appropriate scaled economic growth and affordable housing. We like Pine Hill's draft vision of itself as a model for the 21st century trail town that includes preserving its unique community character, improving the walkability of its downtown, and access to trails and parks, while encouraging commerce on Main Street and looking for ways to add affordable housing for residents and affordable lodging for Catskill Park visitors, skiers, and summer visitors. Sincerely, and that would be the Shandaken Comprehensive Plan Committee. So, if
Seems
there's,
good.
Sounds good to me.
Does anyone have any
sure,
things they
and
like
if
or
there's
don't
anything
like?
we would like to add or delete, you know, it's, Jan drafted it with my help, and, you know, we can change it as.
So that's like a mission statement for our
For,
group?
no,
That's
that's the,
part of
that's
their
the,
grant
that's the
proposal?
the vision statement I wrote is for the grant, it's from the Pine Hill, the PH2, I always call it
Oh,
Pine Hill
so we're
2.
just gonna sign on to it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're just giving them a support letter for the grant writing purposes.
Okay.
So that they can get the grant,
Great.
yeah.
But this is coming from us?
But it's coming from us.
As if we wrote it?
As if we wrote it to
Okay.
support them, yeah.
Okay, it's not the same
Yeah.
wording as something else that they're submitting?
No,
Okay.
it's unique,
Okay.
yeah. And Jan is just, you
So
know,
she
we'll
just
go
wrote
get
it,
her.
so
So she
good.
wrote it,
Yeah.
you know, with my input, but she moved a little
Okay.
faster than I did.
Sounds good.
My only suggestion is that the language where it says the application includes all that is embodied in that vision plus emphasis on activities that we intend to include in our updated plan. Since it is a public process document, it's probably better to use language like expect will be
Okay.
included in
Yeah,
and
actually,
adopted
that makes more
or
sense.
something, you know, just a little bit more
Okay.
less like
Right.
we are
Sure.
the final say.
Okay. Sounds good. So, all in favor of me signing this letter and sending it back to Jan?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Peter, do we have any word on the smart growth grant?
No, I haven't heard back from them yet. We will be opening bids for planner to do the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
I know we have at least 2 packages that were sent to us.
Okay, good. Now, did we not get it in a last round, or is this the original one that we're working on?
Oh, it's in.
It's the original one we've been working on.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that you can continue to reapply.
Right, but we got the one in, we just haven't heard back from them.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's what I want to know. All righty then.
I think you said last time, correct me if I misremember, that normally with these, even let's say we don't hear right away, we could already engage a plan,
Oh, absolutely.
so we don't really have to like wait for them to hear back.
Right. And we'll be doing that tomorrow.
What's the date for when they let you know?
Yeah, I thought it was sometime in September. It could be late September.
It's still sometime in September, so.
Consultant, we're gonna hire. Kids in.
Right, so ideally, we will have some packages from planning consulting firms. We will hear that we've received the grant. We will have the money to select a firm and then put together a contract.
I
Hopefully.
think
We won't have to do it
select
first.
the firm no matter what, and
Figure it out.
then we'll figure it out.
Are we taking bids? How do we?
Yeah, we put out a bid package and an RFP. About a dozen companies called me and asked me for the details. I sent it to them and I told them there was a time and a day they had to respond by, and that's tomorrow at 2. And we're gonna open up the bids tomorrow.
So you've received several?
Right now, I know we have 2.
Okay.
Can you identify those firms?
SLR and Lamont.
What's the second one?
LaBelle.
Okay.
And has a date been rescheduled for the presentation?
Yeah, we never got we wanted to get a presentation before tomorrow's meeting.
So it's not gonna happen.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
This has been
COVID
like
is
3
back.
months, or how long has it been since the presentation for their,
It was supposed to be last month, right?
I thought it was the month before, and then it was last month, and now it's,
Yeah.
so
Months.
that's not good, that's not a good.
Everybody's so good. But, not everybody does a presentation. When we decide on who would be the best responsible applicant or bidder, then we'll have them do a presentation.
Okay, so they're just coming tomorrow.
They're sending in a big package by tomorrow, and we'll look at them during the town board
Bid
meeting
for
tomorrow.
professional services, right?
Yeah.
Can you name the
That kind of
amount of
consulting
bids
services,
at
I
this
don't
point?
think you have to bid on
I'm sorry?
Can you name the dollar amount for the
No,
bids
but
at
I
this
think
point?
No, I haven't opened it. We can't open them before.
We open about a town board meeting.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Okay. All right, so we left up last month. Do you have, put your bookmark on
3,
3-3?
yep. Roman numeral 3-3, community services, we stopped at.
So we're on flood protection? Am I on the right page?
That's what I'm-
Community services,
Oh, okay, number 4, right.
Oh, I see. I was-
page 3, number 4.
Eliminating public. Oh,
Roman
that's
numeral 3,
The way they
or
number
L
it.
3.
It's on the Google.
Yeah. We're gonna,
Yes,
better numeration in future
Comprehensive
plan.
plan.
That's like,
Oh,
first things first.
Oh, I see.
First things first, we're gonna learn.
I was-
to-
I was-
American plan.
No, I was looking for the bigger headers, and I was like, because I know their numbering system is awkward. So since Leah's not here, do we have any volunteers to read?
I'll read.
Okay.
Do we do a paragraph at a time? Do we discuss, or do we just jump in?
Yeah, we do a paragraph and then we discuss it. And just so the members of the audience who weren't here last month, what we've been doing is just reviewing
Yeah.
the last plan,
It's
going
3-3
through
paragraph
paragraph
and
by
then
paragraph.
it's
And then
like
having
both
a
Roman
discussion
numeral-
just to familiarize
Roman numeral
ourselves
3.
It's page
with what was
70.
said. A lot of things got outdated, and then with climate change and all these other new things, we're looking to see what we could add. Just to prepare ourselves, there will be further public participation meetings, where we really take a lot more input from the public.
Okay, community services, emergency communication. An alternative emergency communication system needs to be identified in light of Verizon's recent announcement that it will be eliminating many of the public telephones in town. Public parking. Parking is limited in the village hamlets, and part of the hamlet revitalization has focused on providing more parking spaces to to better accommodate the seasonal population variations. The town's zoning regulations make provisions for ensuring adequate parking for new construction. Public facilities. The town currently does not have an evacuation center of sufficient size to handle a significant amount of the population in case of flood or other disaster. The town does not have a modern, centralized facilities for communication, emergency services, and public services. Public restrooms throughout the town are desired. So that was the paragraph on community services.
The only comment, since this was written, Bel Air is now recognized by FEMA as a
Right.
as an evacuation
Evacuation center.
So,
Yeah, that started with Irene.
yeah.
And I have to say, when I first moved here, you know, you would lose electricity a lot in the winter, you know? And we never lose electricity in Pine Hill anymore because they keep it so up to date because they know that, you know, they're needed, you know, so they pay attention to that grid.
Well,
So,
lucky you.
I know, right? The last flood, we lost internet for an hour.
I think we
felt
all,
like really guilty.
we also have, some of the firehouses, right, have
Right,
generators
yeah.
and that kind of stuff, so we
So,
can definitely,
This
we've
will, you know,
made some improvements in this section, for
Yeah,
sure.
in my notes, like beforehand, I had written like, really, this whole thing needs to be updated. There is still a payphone at Chuck's gas station,
Is there?
but I don't think it works. But it is there. It is there.
It's an artifact.
Yeah,
It is
maybe we
dark
can
artifact.
have it put in the museum.
There's one at the end of Woodland Valley at the campground.
That
I do
one.
believe it does work.
Yeah, and then,
What does
Yeah.
it take, a dime?
and then the notch too.
Probably need a
Once
credit,
before it
probably
goes
has a credit card
campground
swipe.
there.
Yeah, right.
Oh, really? Oh, at the campground there at the notch. yeah.
But I would say with this, you
That's
know,
interesting.
I would put in that we need, Wi-Fi throughout the town. Because basically, if you have a cell phone and there's available Wi-Fi, you can make a phone call, right? If it's-
Generally,
When you
if
say
you
Wi-Fi,
know-
you mean like broadband?
Yeah, broadband.
Like hotspots. which
Yeah,
is the MTC
yeah.
program that we started doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know people who don't know that they have a cell phone and they don't know that they should turn on Wi-Fi calling. And it also saves you on your minutes.
Are there any hotspots in service yet? Do we, I mean, I know that Margaretville.
I don't.
Is it Glenbrook Park?
Yeah, Pete, did they complete any of those hotspots?
Not yet, but within the next couple of weeks, we're gonna do
Didn't
maybe
it
in
read
the end.
Glenbrook Park? Yeah, I think Glenbrook does.
And,
no?
well, Glenbrook already has Wi-Fi from the police station,
Right. And Pine Hill has it from the community
but the little
center.
park in Phoenicia as well. Right?
It's open.
And the libraries.
And the libraries, yes,
Yeah.
they're very important.
Public.
And yeah, so when we have those, so now is this Margaretville?
Right, but the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, let's see, the broadband, you know, if those lines are out, the Wi-Fi calling
Correct.
doesn't work, so
Correct.
it's really the cell signal
Yeah.
in case
correct.
of emergency.
But it's, yeah, you're
You know,
right.
it's definitely more helpful to have the Wi-Fi hotspots, but
So in terms of parking, is this the appropriate point to insert the need for charging stations for EV vehicles?
Yes.
Yeah.
somewhere in here for sure. As far as parking goes, you know, a lot of communities have discovered that their traditional zoning requirements for parking actually create excess parking, especially the formulas for like retail and certain industries where in reality and in the operation of the businesses, the demand calculation never at any one point, you know, it fills up the required parking. So a lot of communities are looking at other ways to determine parking so as not to end up with excessive paved areas that need to be treated for stormwater runoff and contribute heat for climate change. So maybe when we look at our zoning laws, we can look at other ways to require parking instead of just the neoclassic traditional one space per X square feet of a business area.
I think it probably goes hand in hand with, like, you know, Pine Hill and Phoenicia are quite different in that Pine Hill has a parking lot, a public parking lot. I know it needs work.
Well, it needs.
But it exists.
Yes, and it's not even enough.
And Phoenicia
Yeah.
has like the Brios parking lot, which is not public, but kind of serves as like a town parking lot a bit. But I would say like probably what you're saying on like a per business level, you know, we could probably be more flexible. But as a town level, we need to prioritize a little bit more on as far as
Right.
public parking
Right,
spaces.
correct.
Yeah.
There needs to
Raised
be,
it
we need to
priority.
determine a need in general for the entire business area and not just look at each one individually.
Yeah,
And then,
makes sense.
what happens now is that if the new business comes in and they can't meet the parking requirement under the current zoning, they can just pay, in lieu of parking spaces. And theoretically, that payment is supposed to be going into a fund that at some point will be utilized for development of public parking, but that part is the tricky part, so.
And to my knowledge, I don't know if anybody's ever accessed that and actually paid it. Because some people think that if they do it that way and they pay, then, they're gonna have 2 parking spaces in front of their business that's reserved for them. But that's not how it works. It works the way Hillary said. So, and then,
Even so, even if whatever the price is per parking, it's not gonna
It's not
generate
enough.
enough money
Yeah.
to actually develop
Like it would-
the
yeah, you would
parking,
have
so
$400
it's
sitting in
like,
a-
it's like a nice concept, but it doesn't
Correct.
actually work.
and I think it sounded doable back in the 70s.
Well, it may work for communities that are much denser
Right,
and much more
larger.
populated than ours, and our zoning is just based on, what all the other communities' zoning is based on, because that's how zoning
And like
came to
Pine
be,
Hill
copycat.
was laid out before people had cars.
Yes.
And we have several businesses in town that physically cannot have parking. Like the building sits on the land that's 10 feet on either side.
Yeah.
And it hinders people, what are we gonna do about parking? And so the zoning regs need to be more flexible in grandfathering, like a building that's been there since the 1880s. It makes it an unusable building.
Right.
For what people
And
wanna
that needs
do.
to be taken into consideration, but frankly, right now, Phoenicia has a humongous parking problem.
Yeah,
And so I don't
they
know how
do.
being more lenient with the parking regs that we have is gonna help with the problem.
By
that
building
sits
a
there every
2-story
year.
parking garage where the hotel used to be.
Perfect. I'll call that.
Underground.
Yeah, underground would be good, yeah, but the
No,
thing
but
is,
we
you
do
wanna-
have
Tell
that,
him he can
the
charge.
entire back area that everyone's talked about, the river walk within all of that
Right.
space. If all of that space back there was re-envisioned differently, it could, provide parking and flood mitigation
Right.
No, I know.
at the same
And
time.
frankly,
so-
I get more calls about Phoenicia, about the Festival of the Voice, the building they're selling. And regardless of what anybody wants to do, from completely mundane ideas to
There's nowhere to
completely
park.
insane ideas, the site plans can't be approved. There's
Yeah.
nowhere to park.
Right.
Yeah, the bigger issue is availability of land. Bigger issue is
No, I know
space.
that.
But I guess what we're getting at it, but it's unfair to, not unfair, but it's just, the parking regulations restrict the business, and the business doesn't get developed, then the economic benefit of a vibrantly active downtown doesn't happen, because,
Correct.
so that clearly says that, the government needs to figure out,
We have to-
provide the parking.
So,
We have to be creative.
just for this document, do we want to put in there, we would like to see more municipal parking?
Well, no, I think,
Well,
well,
I mean,
right
we
now,
can
I think
make
our job
notes.
is to say this whole, like, we're brainstorming right here, but this whole, all three
The
of
whole
these
thing needs to be rewritten.
needs to be rewritten
I know,
and
but on the
and
Google Drive, Leah's been
reconsidered.
making notes, so I'm
Yeah.
just trying to keep
Yeah,
up for
I
it.
think that's
Reconsidered
definitely
and-
true. Yeah.
Reevaluate how parking is calculated and developed, or something
Right.
like that.
Move on.
Yes, sir.
B, vision and goals. The future of the town of Shandaken must rest on a commonly shared vision of progress. The past, present, and future of Shandaken is tied to its unique natural resources, the mountain ranges, the streams, and the valleys. These resources, magnificent mountains, clear streams, diverse wildlife, spectacular views, provide the raw material for a healthy, peaceful lifestyle for the town's residents, balanced with a successful economy based on environmentally sensitive development to sustain them. Based on the history, natural resources, and the needs of the community, the town of Shandaken is a natural, peaceful haven that has significant potential to draw upon the tourism market. With the tourist-based businesses that exist today, plus continued coordinated efforts to enhance these natural resources, Shandaken has a bright future. To achieve this vision, the comprehensive plan establishes the following goals and objectives. Goals are in bold-faced type. Here's a goal. A, protect and preserve the environmental, historical, and cultural features, resources within the town of Shandaken from harm, physical degradation, and visual impacts. And then there are a series of notes underneath I'll read. Minimize through land use planning, zoning, and/or development regulations impacts to existing air quality, water quality, wetlands, streams, fauna, flora, visibility, steep slopes, and scenic vistas. Determine and incorporate needed erosion and sedimentation controls, plus stormwater management requirements into site plan regulations to maintain regional water quality. Identify the most valuable man-made resources, which are of historic, archaeological, or cultural significance, and implement all practicable means to protect and restore these resources. Promote these features in tourism materials. The long tradition of arts and crafts and cultural expression in the Central Catskills should strongly be supported and encouraged as a link to the town's past and an integral part of its future. So that's all the A section there. I don't know if anybody wanted to comment on that or continue through.
Well, I mean, we
There's
should
a lot
probably
here.
comment since,
Yeah.
it's a clear section. Maybe even start with the introductory paragraph about,
Let me read that again. To protect and preserve the environmental, historical, and cultural features and resources within the town of Shandaken from harm, physical degradation, and visual impacts.
It's like you kind of can't argue with it, you know.
No, I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything there that's, it's all pretty general, but yet,
But if there's nothing,
I just, can we go back to the introductory
Oh,
paragraph
okay,
under
sure.
B, visions
down
and
here,
goals?
visions and goals?
Yeah. It just, this reads about, really promoting ourselves to the tourism market and trying to encourage, and make ourselves appealing for tourism. And I think we are, and we may be at the point where we are, have to focus the promotional efforts on certain things away from more sensitive areas and try and figure out ways to promote activities or tourism in the area that utilizes, that's less impactful, like going to the theater, and, that isn't tromping through the woods with 20 people on and getting your 3,500 badge, and things that encourage people to do alternate activities besides partake of our recreational resources, if that makes sense, because we're being overrun in a way as it is. Those resources are getting overused, and we don't have any way to really combat it. So to continue to encourage people to come and do those things when we don't have ways to deal with the garbage, or we don't have ways to deal with their parking at the trailheads, and we don't have bathrooms. So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that A section kind of mentions that also, long
It just,
tradition.
it shows we've changed, in the 20 year, whatever, however many years since this plan is, some of these things in here have achieved, they've happened, we've seen them happen, and they aren't fully contained. So I guess that's what our job is to.
Right.
Just to emphasize cultural resources.
To emphasize, utilizing, creating a vibrant downtown and doing things out in town and having more activities that are less inviting people into pristine spaces unless we're prepared to, one, educate them, and two, deal with their related impacts. and I know, that's something the entire Catskills is wrestling with, but we can look at some of the other plans that have been developed by like the Catskill Center and whatnot, and try and get some of, that information to wrap into.
It's really a matter of changing emphasis maybe a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and not de-emphasizing our beautiful nature.
No, not at
but
all.
Bringing forward the other stuff that we offer.
Yeah. Don't just come here and,
I mean, you can't deny, the
Swim and-
attraction of why we're here.
No, I'm definitely not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that we don't need to focus on, bringing people into our most pristine and wilderness areas, and focus on giving them opportunities to spend their money and visit and.
So,
So important to include other avenues in addition to the natural,
Right.
pristine areas to have a
Yeah.
wider.
it's more of a well-rounded experience.
And also, but the other part is to handle the impact to acknowledge there is an impact that's not being handled
Right.
well.
And other organizations are working to deal with that too. But as a town, we're in this area. We do have an obligation to recognize it and try to plan for it as best as we can. And
Maybe something that can go in there. Like, I know every year I attend the Catskill Centers, I don't know what they call it, but where they get all the assembly members and the state senators and
the park lobby day.
the park lobby day, and Catskill citizens complain to the government officials about what's wrong in the Catskills and what they should be working on. And every year it's just, well, I don't want to say every year, but for the past quite a few years, it's generally the same thing. Like, there's not enough DEC personnel to maintain things. The parking areas are not maintained well. There's no garbage pickup. There's no, it's kind of like these sort of similar complaints that I think a lot of people have that live near trailheads or live near recreational facilities or even fishing holes and stuff like that, just to try to get more focus on it. And, maybe that could be part of it also, just saying that, we want the town to do its part, but we also want our partners to do their part, that, DEP can't just, I think if you go back
They
to
all
when
have
this plan,
obligations.
when this plan was written, I think DEC's commitment, I think the population of users of these facilities was a lot less.
Definitely.
And it's just increased a lot, and the attention has not increased at an equitable amount. And
the money.
encouraging more
Yeah,
attention.
the
and
attention,
money and-
meaning money.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah, meaning money.
Yeah.
And
So
I
I
know.
just have a question. Who are the key players? Is it the townspeople, the DEC, would the DEP also fit under that?
I think for the fishing stuff, maybe, because they manage some of the fishing holes.
They do.
They own the parcel
Only
next to
below
Rocket.
the,
All the
only
watershed.
below the Five Arches
DEP.
Bridge.
Oh,
They own the parcel next to Rocket.
The rock cut, right,
DP.
yeah.
And I know there are
There's-
residents of
otherwise
Pine
it's a
Hill who are
DEC.
upset about the rail
so
trail.
it would be good to identify the key players that would want to increase their participation,
Oh,
to have input on this. Does that make sense?
I think a lot of it is just DEC at the end of the day.
Who's putting in the rail trails? Is that the county?
That's the county.
County, yeah.
Yeah, because people are upset about that. They think it's gonna,
That's gonna be a
Right.
state budgetary issue.
a state
Input
budgetary issue.
From the DEC, that's why we don't have enough enforcement, it's a budget issue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, the county's moving forward on the one, ending at,
First phase.
Plymouth.
Yeah, yeah, from High Mount to, Big Indian, yeah.
Yeah, they're moving forward, they have.
No, I know they're moving
Yeah.
forward, but what I'm saying is people are upset about it because they feel that it's going to bring,
Oh, too much.
Too much.
It could bring a lot of
Yeah,
people
too
without
much.
accommodating their
yeah,
presence. Yeah.
you know,
So
Okay.
some of that component could be increased educational efforts, like maybe signage at the trailheads, like,
Mhm.
pack out what you packed in, stuff like that.
right.
Right, but we can also, reinforce that as a community
Yeah.
as best as we can.
Well, that, yeah, and I think it goes back to my original complaint with this plan is, you can list a lot of
Yeah.
things, but unless you have put in actions to enforce it,
And like Tan Bark that's a town trail, right? Town maintains that.
Yeah.
So that that could be like a model, you know.
Okay.
What we do at Tan Bark, we can really show the DEC like this is what you should be doing everywhere else, you know.
Yeah, it's not
Well, are there
not
any
trailer
maintenance?
park up.
There's not really any maintenance. I don't know. Does the town, like if there's trees down, who doesn't? I thought New York, New Jersey Trail Conference was,
No, that's like Brian Powers' thing. He goes up and maintains it, but it's not. I think it's on parish property, but the grade is too steep. But I mean, I don't want. Yeah.
So it's at this point, it's volunteers?
Yeah.
Oh, 'cause it's
The
not
people that
village.
established the park. The
Yeah.
town didn't go up and cut it.
Got it.
It was a self-made committee went up and cut it. Because the town maintains the park, it's under our umbrella.
Okay.
So there's definitely stuff we could talk about that section, right?
Yeah.
Put a note there. This is section B, promote the economic development of the town of Shandaken to ensure an acceptable standard of living for its residents. It's pretty broad. Economic development decisions will be guided by the desire to achieve the balance between environmental protection, quality of life, and employment opportunities for community residents. Recognize the link between economic development and available income-appropriate housing, and establish proactive means to ensure that each is in balance with each other. Promote and develop four-season tourism based on the town's extensive natural, historic, and cultural resources. Promote business activities which do not negatively impact natural resources or the environment. Encourage second homes, cottage industries, arts and crafts, theater, music, and home-based businesses as economic development means. Assist local businesses in obtaining financing by establishing links with appropriate agencies and financial institutions.
Yeah,
Okay.
can chuckle on that one, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, well, the first
What's
bullet
the
is
first?
whatever.
Hmm?
The first bullet doesn't really say much.
No, and again, I think these are fairly generalized.
I mean, there's nothing that you don't want, right? They're
Trying to
all
argue
good.
with any of them.
How
Correct.
we enact on them. And how
Well,
we-
I mean, the second bullet from the bottom, encourage second homes, cottage industries.
Well, yeah, you may want
Yes.
to take out some of those words, but the rest of it,
Yeah.
arts, crafts, theater, music, and home-based businesses.
Okay, so like, what, you know, if that's so, is that encouraging home-based businesses is economic, is that adding the special use permit for home-based business, or is it, or is there more to that? Well, something to think about
You asked
in
that
the zoning,
question.
I don't know, in the zoning
if
and
they
land
want
use.
home-based business in a residential area, then
Nobody
yeah,
wants-
special use permit.
Yeah.
No, you can already
whatever.
do you can already do a
Yeah,
home-based.
no, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a home-based business. I don't.
I agree.
Right, but
Bother
you need to
anybody. Yeah,
encourage
oh,
it.
okay, yeah.
That's what I was just
Well,
wondering,
it
is it
says-
something to
Do we need to
encourage?
discourage? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're all good.
I think,
Yeah.
Maybe not second homes, because
Right. I don't think.
it's
I don't.
not, we're not
I
looking
don't
for that right
see
now.
the reason for that to be in there.
No.
What, the whole sentence?
No,
No,
encourage
second
second
homes.
homes.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's-
yeah.
Can you turn this a little more?
Doesn't really need encouraging.
No,
Pretty much,
you know, it's the market takes care of that. There's nothing we can do about it.
right.
I think the town has been quite successful in attracting second homeowners.
I think so.
yeah,
I don't
we
think
need to,
wanna-
how can we discourage?
I don't think we want to open that can, right? I would take it out. But I think,
Yeah, I mean, these are all good ideas, there's just no actual measures to accomplish them.
right,
No.
there's
Yeah.
no real vehicle
But these
for
are
it.
visions things,
Yeah.
right?
Unless- yeah.
Yeah, it's the vision section.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll move on to C.
Go ahead.
Provide programs and laws to guide future development toward desired patterns within the town of Shandaken. Establish a development pattern utilizing land use regulations, public investment strategies, and other means that are consistent with environmental constraints and opportunities. Balance the socio-economic needs of the community and respectful of existing or historical land use patterns. Employ the town's land use plan, zoning law, and subdivision regulations to reflect desired traditional development locations. Quality and patterns of concentrated hamlets separated by low-density open areas. Existing hamlets should be revitalized and the distinct character of each identified and promoted. Development of regulations should be flexible enough to accommodate specific development circumstances without jeopardizing the development patterns outlined in this plan. Incentives could be provided to developers who contribute desired types and sizes of development, protect important natural or man-made features. Developer means to support tourism in the area that includes encouraging government and nonprofits, businesses, and the facilities themselves to better plan, coordinate, and expand tourism-related activities. Use expanded infrastructure to promote growth in desired areas. Certain uses, especially adult businesses and casino gambling, are incompatible with the rural character of the town and should be limited and restricted to the extent allowed by law. Housing opportunities for the full economic range of the town's population should be encouraged in a form that is compatible with the scale and pattern of increased needs. Hamlet boundaries should be reviewed to define the limits within which economic development efforts should be focused. It's a lot of words. Provide programs and laws that guide the future development toward desired patterns within Shandaken. Again, a lot of generalized stuff here, right?
Right, and it doesn't really, like the last one, Hamlet boundaries, I've always had like an issue with this because Hamlet, in New York state law, Hamlet
Which part, sorry,
isn't
what was
really
the
a
part
word.
you said you had an issue with?
The last
Hamlet
one,
boundaries.
Hamlet boundaries. So in New York state law, there's no real definition of Hamlet. It basically means neighborhood. So you're saying neighborhood boundaries should be reviewed. So how do you, like, it's not something that can really be done. Like Pine Hill has distinct boundaries because it used to be an incorporated village. And really the only thing that designates these things are zip codes.
Right.
So how do you do that? And then, so it's kind of already done.
Well, I guess you do
You know.
it quite clearly in the zoning map because you have areas that are zoned
Yeah.
as Hamlet. You have areas that are zoned as, and the vast majority of them
And,
is not zoned
and then
as
for
Hamlet.
the MOA, they used Hamlet boundaries just to pick out those pieces of land that the DEC could not take.
Right.
But they,
So is there a boundary line drawn somewhere between
No.
these hamlets?
Well,
That's what I
well,
mean.
there's
No,
no
there's
jurisdictional line. The
Yeah.
only thing right now that really, you know, as far as like a hamlet boundary is the zoning. There's hamlet residential
Right.
and
So
hamlet
that-
business,
but that could go
or
on
hamlet
for-
commercial, HC,
Yeah.
and so you could. So I guess what this is saying is maybe to expand the hamlet commercial, you know, into other areas. I guess is what it's suggesting. Review how, you know, but there is no municipal corresponding hamlet boundary.
like, you know, you can say, where is Bushnellville? Like, there's a sign, but where does it start, where does it end?
I
And
know
who
the
gets,
county has
and
an
who gets to
act.
decide that? And who gets to, what's that?
I said at the sign and it ends in Greene County. But yeah,
Yeah, like,
I see your
that,
point,
it's, to me, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. It's,
There's
I've never
no-
understood it.
There's no
Well, how
zoning.
about, I think maybe this is more like maybe hamlets with areas suitable for commercial suitable for commercial development should have that area defined.
But it says, all right, existing hamlets should be revitalized, yeah. So what's,
So, I
what's
mean,
like
maybe,
the
because we
distinct-
don't want to revitalize all of our, 12 hamlets or
Exactly,
whatever it is. So
exactly,
it's
yeah.
really, we need to focus on, are we focusing, we suggest focusing development on specifically Pine Hill and Phoenicia and not any of the other hamlets. What about Mount Tremper? Mount Tremper had a decently zoned business district, but it's
Gone.
flood zone and it's all gone and underwater
Right.
and undevelopable. So is there areas
And
in
it
Mount
kinda-
Tremper that could be reconsidered and a new business area, business
happens to
area
Mount
in
Pleasant?
Hamlet?
Like
Or, yeah.
Mount Pleasant
Got
became
swallowed,
Mount Tremper,
yeah.
you know?
Also, you don't want sprawl, like, that's
Yeah.
really when I identify, when it's focus it into the centers rather than have sprawl, and that's one thing that's could very easily happen along Route 28.
Correct, if you said, well, Hamlet, Smithfield's a hamlet, why can't we have a business there? Then you're encouraging sprawl. Yeah.
Can we replace hamlet boundaries with the zoning map? The zoning map should be subject to review. Because that's, when I read it, that's what I think, that's what
Okay.
most of us get
Yeah,
out of it.
all
is
right,
that
yeah, see, that
it's
makes-
referring to the zoning map, not necessarily the boundaries.
Well, I would say we should be, as part of this process, we should be
Yeah.
doing those reviews and maybe not
Okay.
even having anything in here that has to say anything like that, but
So
what we do know is that these things don't make sense for us now.
Right.
I have a comment, which is that we've been focusing on the problems within the hamlets and the restrictions that make it hard for businesses to, for businesses to open up because of the lack of parking, because of, other issues. But you're saying that having commercial development in other areas is a bad thing. I'm just thinking maybe it's not a blanket bad thing if it means less stress within the hamlets of Phoenicia and Plant Hill.
I would argue that's, the zoning already exists and that hamlet residential should stay that way. That's why people move up here and buy in those, in Woodland Valley and Oliveria and places like that. We have 2 downtown areas. We have a committee that's working on downtown revitalization. Maybe that's where we should be focusing our resources.
I'm just bringing that up as
No,
a
I-
I
question.
mean, there's also
100%.
Route 28, which is not a hamlet, but an
Right.
ideal area to focus commercial development.
That's what I'm
which-
saying, because,
so-
any place along Route 28 is part of a hamlet, right? But it's not a hamlet commercial zone,
right.
or is it?
No,
that's-
it's highway business.
Highway business.
Parts of,
Very few- very few parts.
but
of it.
not
Bulk
all.
of Route 28 is zoned residentially.
A lot of
Yeah.
it.
Based on the language and I think this.
Right, and
this
to
code
change that,
encourages a
that's
lack
where
of
you end up
commercial
with
development on
sprawl.
Route
I mean,
28.
do we wanna look like Shokan,
No.
Well, I don't know if there's a happy medium.
Yeah, no,
I'm just
yeah,
saying.
no, like,
No, and I think to
Encourage
put
hamlet
something in there.
Route 28 development in Shokan.
Yeah.
We'll put that in our code.
Yeah. No, I think to put something in there encouraging economic development in hamlet residential would be counterproductive to the overall vision, or contradictory rather. But that's just my 2 cents.
I don't think that's what we were saying. I think we were talking about
No,
just
not
look,
that,
Yeah.
specifically that last.
looking at where the boundary is between the current hamlet residential and hamlet commercial zone, like in Phoenicia specifically, and seeing if there's opportunities, if it's appropriate to expand it or not.
Or shrink in some areas.
Yeah.
I think
There are
I
some
think
areas that I
doing
think-
an analysis of that should be part of this
Yeah.
process.
yeah.
What little sub neighborhoods, maybe weren't very dense, 15 years ago, but now they look like they're more part of the quote unquote hamlet, and they should be formally more incorporated as far as zoning and policy is concerned. And maybe the opposite. Maybe some areas were denser, and like particularly Mount Tremper. I think this plan looks at a business district in Mount Tremper, and I think it's pretty obvious that what was like near the post office is
Right,
not gonna
it's
not
not,
gonna today.
Right.
Going forward, there's not gonna be a business district.
Yeah, and even across the road in Mount Pleasant, that's a floodplain too, and now, with the mattress barn, that's in the floodplain.
So I think just taking a bigger view at that. I think
Yeah.
not for today, but
No.
for
Right, yeah, that's what we're kinda like lining up our next
should happen.
jobs.
Our bigger focuses.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to draw an issue. The development regulation should be flexible enough to accommodate specific development circumstances without jeopardizing the development patterns outlined in this plan. We worked really hard to do that with the short-term rental committee laws. So I'm asking the question, are those laws working well, or do we need to revisit the short-term rental regs at this point?
I think you have to ask more than just the supervisor.
Yeah, and it
it's a
hasn't been
community
long
one.
enough to judge it.
I think for the time being, they're working well enough. They definitely could be tweaked, but
Okay, because the whole short-term rental landscape has shifted somewhat because of COVID.
Mhm.
So now some of these short-term rentals are more long-term rentals. I'm just bringing that up, if that needs to be revisited.
Yeah, it does, and I think, it might not be the right time, we need to, give it some more time. but I think, like, from my and I'm gonna say this from my personal experience, it started out like gangbusters. And this summer, everyone I talked to, people having revenge travel. Now they can go to Europe. They can go to all these places.
Revenge travel?
Yeah, that's what the industry is calling it. It's revenge travel, the travel industry. Because for a couple of years, everybody was going to Airbnbs locally because they felt safe. And now they're getting back at the,
International travel.
Getting their
Yeah.
national revenge.
being confined, and they're going to Europe, and they're going to all these places. And I went from being, I have a place in Vermont, I went from being totally booked for 2 summers. I had 3 rentals this summer. And one of them, well, not even, I had 2, and the next one's in October.
Oh, really?
It's dead. And a lot of people are gonna drop out. And those people, I mean, I only bought mine so I could visit my daughter. People are gonna drop out, and they're gonna become long-term rentals again, or they're gonna go back on the market. Because people are not, it's not sustainable, the money they were making.
That's the
So-
impression I'm getting too from
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, yeah.
So.
Right. Unfortunately, what's going to happen though when they do sell their
They're gonna want
STRs,
top
they're
dollar,
going to want, you
you
know,
know,
they
'cause
won't
they
be
put all
selling
this-
something that anybody local can
Yeah, they put all this
afford.
money into it.
And
Yeah.
or if they want to rent it out, they're going to need to rent it out for some exorbitant amount that nobody here can afford.
Yeah, so, I don't know, the whole thing, like, it's gonna be a whole
It's gonna be
big
interesting.
problem.
Oh.
Maybe we would need to work with committees like Mark to get people down payments so that they can buy them, so we don't, end up with things. But,
So
I'm
is
sure
that-
Joyce she enforces the,
Does that portend a trend towards affordable long-term rental?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, for a while, Shandaken had a grant through Sharp, the people were getting a $14,000 towards their down payment. Hopefully the state, to address the needs, will come out with something like that again. Maybe give them
Yeah.
$25,000, so that these people can at least get into a house.
Unfortunately, that's not going to.
No, I know,
There was an attempt at that in the last state budget that was actually shot down.
yeah.
The county used to get a grant for that, that they applied with RUBCO from the state. And this year, because of the difficulty, they decided to no longer apply for it.
Oh, I see.
Because they found that buyers that qualified for the program and got the money, let's say you even got $20,000, even $25,000, they would show up to the bargaining table as such, compared to the market, they would have such a weak offer because people were showing up with cash, people were showing up with one quick big financing, whatever, and here they have a grant plus a loan
It's
plus
like
something,
so complicated,
Yeah,
and you're looking
yeah.
at multiple,
they would
options.
get awarded the grant, like the person would get awarded the grant, and then it would take them 10 months, 12 months to find a house. And from a grant perspective, like they needed to spend the money,
Right.
10 months ago, yeah.
Even
So-
getting a VA,
Yeah.
getting a VA loan
very
or
difficult.
getting an FHA loan to
Yeah.
get accepted in the market right now is just nearly
But maybe this
impossible.
is something that the housing committee could work on too, looking at how the STRs are affecting,
We do have a housing committee.
yeah.
And the county does have money now to give grants to landlords to upgrade their long-term rentals.
No,
They did. I think that might have passed. I don't know if that
Oh,
program
what-
is still open.
I don't know if it's the
It
same,
still is,
I
yeah.
think there was a grant that was due September 8th, I don't know if it's the same one. My
No,
husband
that's
and
a
I
different
were-
one.
It's a different one?
Yeah, the ADU one is the one you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's to develop an
That's to put
accessory.
an apartment in
Yeah,
your house.
or a little cottage or something in the
We
back.
made too
or-
much money.
On this topic,
Everybody, I think, does.
September
Even though
26th at the Pine Hill Community Center is going to be a housing resource fair
Thank you.
from 5 to 8.
5 to 8. Yeah.
That's September 26th, Pine Hill Community Center.
Be there.
Be there. There'll be food. Great
Yes,
food.
and there'll be
From a
food.
wonderful establishment,
Really?
Phoenicia Diner.
You want
be-
free
I'll be
Phoenicia
in the
Diner
Rocky
food?
Mountains.
Come on out.
Right.
Might work 8 o'clock.
All right, should we continue on here?
Well, we're getting close to 8 o'clock.
Well, we got two sections.
Okay, let's go ahead and
Read
do
them
it.
through. Provide the infrastructure necessary to meet the other comprehensive plan goals and to meet the health, safety, and quality of life needs of the residents of Shandaken. Necessary infrastructure, sewage disposal, stormwater, and water supply. And public parking must be provided to allow further development in the hamlets. I'm gonna put a note in there, especially in Phoenicia. State-of-the-art communication services must be provided to facilitate economic growth, particularly in sectors that are dependent on high-speed access to the outside markets and to enhance emergency service response. A safe and efficient transportation system should be maintained to meet the needs of the community, particularly the youth and senior citizens. Multimodal transport, rail, trails, sidewalk systems should be expanded and linked to the major hamlets and villages. Enhanced affordable public service should be provided to support the quality of life of residents and the experience of tourists. Community and cultural centers that bind the history and the future of Shandaken should be encouraged, consistent with economic and tourism goals. Facilities that meet day-to-day needs of the town should be considered. A flood avoidance, mitigation, and protection plan should be developed and implemented to minimize flood damage. A lot of generalizations there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, number one, yes, exclamation point. Or bullet one.
What do
Bullet
they
two,
mean
we're
by-
getting there, so that, there's action on that.
What's that?
Bullet two.
The communications?
Yeah, we're working.
We're working on
and
that,
that's
right? Margaret will tell
Something
them.
that's really being actively pursued, so.
Flood avoidance has been actively pursued.
Yep.
This is what, the 12th year of the Safari Committee?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just revisit the wording there where it's not a protective plan. We've since established a committee that visits that every week, so maybe just maintaining that committee.
So what do
And
they
maintain
think they mean
efforts.
by public service?
It's kind of
Which
general.
one?
The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down.
Enhanced affordable public service should be provided to support the quality of life. Yeah, that's really
Your guess is as good as mine.
generalized.
Library.
Yeah, that whole thing could just be
Maybe that's supposed to
deleted.
be plural public services.
The whole thought should just be
If
eliminated.
we only have service.
We only have one service.
Public service. Yeah. I mean,
And-
obviously, we won't be talking about creating multimodal transportation relying on rails.
Right.
That's out.
Does rail trail count?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, we should be looking at ways to provide alternative connections throughout the town and the communities that doesn't rely on cars.
Right, well, we have a, yeah.
Primarily, we have the potential to connect through that rail corridor.
So today, there's this big, I don't wanna say big, it's small, but there's a citizen movement in Hurley and Olive to try to get their hamlets better connected to the rail trail, because they feel like it's just for people to drive to, it's just for maybe people from not in the area to go to, and they want people that live around them to be able to walk to them easier. And while the rail trail has not yet expanded here, we have pretty natural connections from our hamlets to those sites. So that's, definitely in our favor. As long as, my understanding is that there's connection points that are planned if they are going to get built. So, that's
Yeah, we have the ability to connect, theoretically, from Phoenicia to Pine Hill.
that's in this, and
Oh, yeah, the whole train track is a natural connection.
Yeah.
Well, not natural, but,
But we also,
It's like organic
we're
through.
served by the UCAT, which provides.
Was that around at that point when this was written?
UCAT? I don't think so.
Nope.
No. So, now we have that, I think,
UCAT was around.
I think
Yeah,
we
but
can
the service out here
try to
isn't.
advocate for, the UCAT to better serve our communities as an actual public transportation service and not just like a bus that runs at random hours that can't get
I
you
know,
to
it's
and
so-
from your job
You can't
or whatever.
actually use it to get to your work if
In-
you're,
in-
if you're the other direction,
In many ways, it's not set up to be useful, and we could with the county, one of my thoughts, late night thoughts, was like, we should have the UCAT that comes, the Z line that comes out of Kingston should be like promoted as a designated like recreation route that you can, come up to this area, because the UCAT, the Z route goes through Woodstock, it goes through Boyceville, Shandaken, Boyceville, it goes all the way up the 28 corridor from 375. So it hits all of the different hamlets all the way up, and it could take some of the pressure off of people coming in their own cars or zip cars or rent-a-cars or whatever. If there was like a legitimate way to
And it was
take the
promoted.
bus to Kingston from the city or the rest of the world, get on the free UCAT, and
Right.
They used to have kids from Kingston take it to go skiing at Bel Air. That was the.
Right, yeah.
yeah, my kid used it from Woodstock. Starting, with the fourth graders ski free. They put your kid on the UCAT and they go to Bel Air for the day.
Right, and like UCAT isn't, I take a little lady shopping and she can't take the bus to Boyceville to go shopping because she has to wait 2.5, 3 hours for the bus to come
I'll
back.
come back.
It's like, so unless you're going shopping in Kingston, it's like not useful. It like forces you go all the way to Kingston to shop.
Anyways, we have this county
so-
service, this county
Like, can
transportation
they
plan, and
Develop to,
how could it help us better up here?
to meet our like specific needs.
Yeah, well, to meet our community needs and also to
801
take off some of the
Okay.
pressure of people wanting to get in their car or rent a car and drive up here, think that they need a car to come here. And you could come spend a weekend, you could go to Woodstock, you could go to all the places that people tend to hit around here, using a bus like that if it actually worked well.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 8
Anyways.
o'clock.
All right,
Well, I'm there,
good.
giving myself a big old bookmark so I don't lose it again.
All right, move to close the meeting.
So, is there anything else anybody want to add to any?
Grace, you
Okay.
did get a roll call. We didn't do a roll call, but you
No,
do.
but I have
you beat-
everything.
Oh, sorry. I was so flustered because there's so many people. Usually I'm the first one. Thank you. Okay, I make a motion, we end.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is